Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review Dexter Resurrection Season 1, Episode 1. And I should have looked up the title. Dang it. What's the title? A Beating Heart, yeah. And so this episode, I will say I have never seen the Dexter show before except for like one episode and then a clip or two that I've seen on Twitter that just, they pop up sometimes. But like overall, I have not seen the series. I do know that pretty much like the two big things that I've heard about it is that John Lithgow plays a really good villain at one point, and he even makes a cameo in this first episode. And I did see a clip of the old show of like a really good scene from the show, and I was like, oh, that might be good to watch sometime. And then, this show came out, and the problem with these types of shows is that not these types of shows, but sequel shows, they just come out all the time. And so I'm left with like the conflict of like, should I review this show and watch it even though I've never seen any of the other stuff? Because it looks good, and you'd think that Showtime would want everyone to watch it. They wouldn't just want people who watched the original show to watch it. They would want to draw in new viewers too. And so I guess you could call me a new viewer. But the other thing that I heard, and this goes for the first revival too, is that apparently the original series finale was terrible and people hated it. They thought it was very unsatisfying, and I can't comment on that. And then they made a revival show to kind of fix that terrible finale, and I was kind of almost tempted to watch it because they had that guy from Shawshank, the guard, and he was in it, and I thought that sounded good. And then apparently that had a terrible finale too. So, it seems like this show is just allergic to having good finales? Is that what it is? Like, I'm not sure. I don't know, because but that's what I've heard. So this show, I don't exactly know like what their intentions are. Like, I don't know if this is like a show that they want it to, be a new ongoing show, or they just wanted to bring it back for like one season so that they could, end it on a higher note than the last two times that they ended it. I don't know, because then that begs the question of what is their end game with the character? Like, when they wrote the show, did they have a specific like ending that they really wanted? Because the last two endings, to me, I've heard what happens in both, and both of them suck. Both of them sound terrible. The second one just sounds really cliche and dumb. And the first one, I don't even know what that was about. And so, but I was really excited to watch this show because it's like a horror kind of show. And I think the main actor is really good. He just has that look to him that, you can tell he's like a leading man. He's got that type of vibe where like you want to follow him, you want to see what he does. And I don't know, there's just something about the show that drew me to watch it. And the first episode I thought was pretty good. It wasn't great. I would say it was really, really rough as for someone who's never seen the show to come in. And, they basically just showered you with fan service. It felt like a bukkake session, but with fan service, with cameos. And they had all these ghosts and these hallucinations. Dexter, he got shot, and so now he's in the hospital and he's recovering and he's seeing these hallucinations. And making all these references to characters that I've never seen before. So it was even weirder for me than it was for Dexter himself. And so that was pretty strange. But the thing I guess I will say that I liked about it is that I appreciate at least that Showtime is trying to right the wrongs of the past, because to be honest, I was watching the other day because I am writing a show. I'm writing a Goosebumps fan series. And I was watching an old episode of Better Call Saul, and I was just reminded of how disappointed I got with the last season and the season before that. And I just wish that, like, the people who made that show had the same attitude as these people, because I think it's really nice. And, the fans, I don't know what they think. I don't know. I've never even talked to a Dexter fan before about the show. I do have a friend who really wanted me to watch the show, but she hasn't really talked to me about the show. But I don't know, like, there's something really cool about how they brought the show back again. And, they gave you all these cameos and, characters that you probably are glad to see again? Question mark? Like, I really don't know. This is kind of awkward, isn't it? It's kind of like, I don't know what it's like. It's just weird. But anyways, we also see his son Harrison, who has kind of, I guess you could say, a fun job working at a hotel in New York. And, as I've said on this channel, it's New York! That means that you got serial killers running all over the place. You got Dexter. You got his son. Because it's New York. That's what it's going to be like this entire season. I'm really excited because the It's New York bit is still not gotten old. Like, and basically what that bit is, if you guys don't know, is that every time I watch a movie or a show and something questionable in New York happens, I'll just write it off as it's New York. And so I did that for Goosebumps Season 2. If you guys didn't see the new Goosebumps season, the shitty show, the characters would just teleport all over the place. And there were all these other weird things that they did too. And so I would constantly say in every review, it's New York! And so I'm really excited to resurrect that joke again, because I just used it in my Manhattan review the other week. Hashtag check out the Manhattan review, because that one's hilarious. I really just went completely crazy in that one. But anyways, we see Harrison, and he encounters this guy and this girl. This guy's married, and he's taking this woman up to his hotel room, and he's going to date rape her, and it's really, really uncomfortable to watch, and it just, oh, God, because, that kind of stuff happens all the time, and it's just like, ooh, like, it's like horror, it's like real life horror, and so that's already something that I kind of like about this show, is that it feels like, instead of, like, monsters and stuff like that, they're creating these horror situations out of real life situations. Like, that's a real life horror movie. That's a real life horror villain. And, you got this kid, and I don't really like him that much yet. I will say, like, he kind of looks like a stereotype type of character, like a whiny, like, young kid who, I haven't seen him before, except for they did this really long preview at the beginning where they kind of just showed the whole revival series. And so now I guess I just don't have to watch that. And he appeared boring in that, and so I'm not really into Harrison yet. I don't really like his character. I don't know what you guys feel about him. Like, do you think that I would like him more if I watch the revival show in full, because maybe I'll do that. But that would be kind of weird. I mean, I don't even know what order to watch the show in, actually, after I watch this season. Like, do I watch the last season first and then get back to watching this, or do I watch the whole show and the revival? Like, I don't even know anymore. But I have opened up. This feels like when you're playing a video game and you've opened up like the secret like room and you get all the secret prizes and you're like, wow, this is weird. I've never gotten this before. Like, I never, like, when I play video games, I never find like the secret places and the secret treasure and stuff. Like, so it would be a very rarity, a big rarity for me to, be in this kind of situation. And so, but he decides to kill this date rapist because of Dexter's influence on him. And so I don't know, the way that they frame it, they don't really frame it as much of a big mistake yet, but it kind of seems like a double-edged sword type of situation where he thought he was doing the right thing, but there's this little tiny bit of that probably wasn't a great idea. And it gets more apparent as the episode goes on, that it might not have been the best decision, because the guy was going to let the girl go. He managed to convince him to just, let the girl go, and then, he'll leave him alone. But then he just decided to kill him anyway. And he disposes of his body, but he does something wrong in that when he's cutting the body up, there's a little tiny drop of blood, and it gets on the ceiling. And I do remember that Dexter, that he and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think he talked a lot about like blood splattering, because he investigated crimes and stuff. So yeah, and or he was really anal about it. He was really obsessive about blood splattering. And, I had never even thought about blood splattering before. Like, and that's another thing, like, when you have to, like, make movies and do, like, special effects, you actually have to think about, like, realistic blood splattering. And it just creates another problem and another, like, another layer of work that you have to do to make like a realistic like blood splattering scene. But anyways, it seems like overall Harrison made a huge mistake in doing what he did, because there's this female detective who comes in, and it seems like I saw an interview where they said that she's basically Dexter's equal. Like, she's going to be that, like, smart and that kind of, it's going to be like a cat and mouse game between them, I guess. And so, she's probably going to figure things out. I mean, there's this part where Harrison is, he stumbles over this cart of, like, dinner trays, and then she's like, who's that guy? And immediately it's like, uh-oh. She's gonna figure it out in like 2 seconds, like, because I mean, he was just awkwardly like standing near the crime scene, and he's really interested in, what they say about people who commit a crime, they like to revisit the scene of the crime, and that's what he was doing there. And so he might be screwed, but that is probably the best thing about this episode to me sorry, is that it's creating a lot of stakes. It's creating this situation where you want to see Dexter come in and help this kid. Regardless of what you think about him, you want to see Dexter come in and, save this kid and outsmart the detective, because you want to see him succeed, and because you know that he cares about his son. So it doesn't matter if you like the kid character. Since you like Dexter, you should be really invested and interested in him saving his son, Harrison, and hopefully, I guess, reuniting with him and whatever else. Whatever else is going to happen, I don't know. Because that's another thing, too. Like, if this finale sucks, I am in the same boat as you guys. And so you guys will have yet another, fan who can speak up and say, that was really, really bad. So let's get back to Dexter himself. He is still in this, I guess he's on a reservation. And he's in this little clinic, and he's recovering. And he finally gets visited by this guy named Captain Batista. And I guess that, a couple of characters, like, revealed to this guy that Dexter is this old serial killer, the Bay Harbor Butcher. Never heard of that before. And so he also wants to play like a cat and mouse game with Dexter, where he questions Dexter, quote unquote catches up with him, but really he wants to, I guess he wants to prosecute Dexter or something. I don't know what he wants to do, but it seems pretty clear that he's kind of like a Hitchcockian character, where he wants to figure things out. And when you're the bad guy in a Hitchcock movie, you do not want that character to figure things out, because then they're going to catch the bad guy. And so in this case, Dexter actually escapes the clinic. I thought that whole sequence was cool. I look forward to seeing like Dexter doing this type of stuff where he has to figure out how to get out of these problem situations, because, it was just like a very simple thing to get out of, but, I'm really excited to see those types of scenes. And maybe is that like one of the hallmarks of the show, like him getting into these really, really tricky situations and then getting out of them? Because that's one of my favorite like tropes of modern movies and shows, or I guess movies in general and shows, is like a character getting in a situation that's really, really, really over his head, and he has to get out of it somehow. Like because it makes you think, like, how would you get out of it? So I look forward to that. And so eventually he gets to New York, and he sees his son, and so he's going to have to help his son not get caught, because he killed someone. It was very sloppy, and it was just kind of like an impromptu thing. And so, yeah, I think overall this episode was kind of a mixed bag, because, again, it didn't really do a good job of, like, setting up a world and a show that someone who hasn't seen the show would enjoy, and that I could get into this show. Like, it just kind of felt like another season. It felt like this is just season whatever, episode 1. It didn't feel like a new show. And that's another thing, too. They call it Resurrection because Captain Batista says he literally resurrected Dexter's name by reversing his death certificate, because I guess Dexter faked his own death, so now he is officially back. I know that the last revival was called Born Again or something, and so, what's the next one going to be called? Like, We Brought Him Back or something? Like, Bring Him Back? I don't know, but like, yeah. So that's pretty silly. But on the other hand, it was very entertaining, and they did set up a story that I'm really, really, really interested in seeing the rest of. I'm really excited to watch the rest of the season. I'm not just watching it because I want to get new viewers or something. Like, I was really actually interested in seeing this. The last thing that I'll say, I would give this episode a B. And the last thing about the episode that I'll say, there's this part that I really don't understand what happened at all. There's this blonde woman, and I think it might even be Uma Thurman. I'm not really sure, but this character, like, walks into a room and she does all this stuff, and stuff happens. And that's literally my interpretation of the scene. I bet if Safi was on here, usually what she does, if you guys have never seen my reviews with my co-host, is that I'll say something very vague, and then she'll, like, over-explain it to the point of where it's like, oh my god. So she would probably say, no, Marco, she walked in the room, she closed the door, she had sunglasses on and hair, because, I mean, she has hair, but you guys know what I mean. Like, it would be really, really, like, but I don't know what happened. I don't know what that scene was. It was, she said something about an invitation. So I guess she was giving someone an invitation. I have no idea. But the thing is, I have a feeling it'll be explained in the next couple episodes, So, anyways, I will be back. I will be back for episode 2. And this is a terrible impression of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Ha ha. What do they call it? What was that one? The pun from Batman and Robin? Ice cold. Have a chilly day. No, what the hell? I'm coming up with the stupidest shit. Okay, what's a no, I know I already did the hasta la vista, baby. I just can't do it, Arnold. I can't do an Arnold at all. Put that cookie down! Okay, sorry. I'll stop now. Okay, so see you for episode 2. Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish. Oh wait, I already said that. I already said that part at the beginning of this video. It is just me here. Well, okay, you know it's me because it's... Okay, so I just watched episode 2, and I gotta say, this show is getting better and better. I think that now that I'm kind of over the big slump of, like, oh wow, like, this is my first, like, real introduction to this universe. Now I'm kind of getting used to it. I'm getting used to the characters and, all that type of stuff. So this episode was a lot, like, simpler, I guess, and it did a great job of setting up elements of the season and kind of just, being a lot more smoother. And I really, really enjoy the character of Dexter because he has this look about him where, on one hand, he kind of looks scary. Like, he looks like he could be, like, a scary guy to run into, and he tries to kill you. But on the other hand, as I said in my last part of this review, is that he's very nice and very normal. And he's honestly kind of like a cool type of guy. Like, he's definitely an iconic character just by, the vibe that he gives off. And so it's really interesting just because, like, he's definitely a lot older than he was when he started doing the show, and he still has it. And I emphasize that because, they did the X-Files revival, and they brought back Mulder and Scully, and they both were terrible in the X-Files, like, revival seasons, both seasons. Mulder, he got all this Botox or whatever, and his face looked like it was blown up, and he clearly acted like he didn't want to be there. And Scully, she was worse. And, they both just seemed like they didn't want to be there, and like they were sick of it, even though, the show is a show that really could go on forever because, I mean, just like with Dexter, like, there's never not going to be serial killers. and there's never not going to be monsters and stuff to do. And so, really, the limit is only like the sky, you know? The sky's the limit, you know? They've said that before. But I guess the point that I'm making is that I like how, even though it's been all these years, that the guy who plays Dexter, I think his name is Michael C. Hall, he does a great job still. And it doesn't seem like he doesn't want to be there. And I think that that's really good of him because, that's another thing too that happens with a lot of these TV actors. And we even saw it with like Andy Griffith. Andy Griffith, he tried to recreate the success of the Andy Griffith Show, but later on in the years, I've heard that apparently he was a huge jerk and he would not like talking about the Andy Griffith Show, and like he was just a big piece of crap to the fans. And so it really shows, like, that's why I think part of why this show is going to be as successful as it's going to be, hopefully, is because you can see that these characters, and I looked at the original show, apparently, like, I mean, all the key players are there for the most part, or a lot of the key players. And the fact that, they all came back, I think it's really, really cool. Kind of like Twin Peaks season 3. So that's one thing I wanted to say, is that I really, really like Dexter now. I think that it's definitely going to be a situation where I go back and watch the rest of the show after this is over. Like, I'm definitely going to do that. It's not a maybe, it's a yes. So let's break this down into two parts. Let's talk about the your car killer, aka the Uber killer, the dark passenger first. So the way that this episode started, it really took me off guard because I knew that Dexter had that car, and yet there was this guy who looked almost exactly like Dexter, and he catches an Uber. I'm not going to call it a your car. Sorry. He catches an Uber and he gets inside, and he terrorizes this poor Haitian driver, and then he's gonna kill him, and then he does kill him, and I thought, oh God, like, why is Dexter doing that? Dexter, I know that you're a serial killer, but you only kill bad guys, right? Like, I was like, oh no. But then it just took me like 2 seconds to be like, wait, but that's not right. And so it just really, I was questioning it because I thought, oh, maybe this is his character. Like, I didn't know, but I should have, because as soon as I thought about it, I was like, there's no way that was him. And what do you know? It is a guy who looks a lot like him, but he wears this hoodie where if you take a picture of it, or if you show a camera, if you point a camera at him, you cannot see his face because the hoodie, it does something with the light. And so I thought that that was actually really unique and creepy and cool, and so I like that element. And but yeah, that was the first scene of the episode, and it really caught me off guard because I was like, I know I'm new to this universe, but I'm not that stupid, and so Dexter eventually he gets in this Uber car of this guy named Blessing, so that he can be taken to an impound lot to get his other car, because he just so happened to not read the sign and it was going to get towed off to that lot. And so I really like the guy who plays Blessing. I thought that he was a cool character to introduce to the show. And he seems like I can't wait to see more of him and see more of him in Dexter, because there was a moment later on where Dexter goes to a party. He goes to a house party, and I guess this is some of what's appealing about the show, is that, like, oh look, it's the serial killer. He's a serial killer, and oh look, he's at this house party with the whole family, and it's like, yeah, look at me, I'm a normal guy. Like, I think that that's part of what makes the show kind of entertaining is just like inserting Dexter into like all these different situations where these people do not know he is the killer, and there's just something really fun about that, and it's really kind of it's cool. It's all very very cool, and but there's a moment where there's this other driver, and he escaped the, I guess you call him the dark passenger, or I guess you could call him the rideshare killer or something like that, and he shows him a video and everything, and he says the killer looked exactly like you, except with a hoodie. And there was a little moment where Blessing kind of was like, and I think that I can see, this is my prediction. I think that later on in the season, Blessing is going to figure out that Dexter is a killer, and Dexter is going to have to make a decision over whether or not he's gonna, I don't know, honestly, that he's gonna have to make some kind of a dramatic decision or something, because the look that he gave him, it wasn't just like a, like, oh, that's like a funny like little joke, like it was like a look, like it was like the TV show was trying to tell you, the editors, the director, everyone, they're trying to tell you, this guy Blessing, he's really intuitive, he's really smart, he's not just some naive, like, immigrant, he's really really smart. And so I think he's going to figure it out, because then he actually rents out, he lets Dexter rent out an apartment which is essentially a basement, and honestly it looked kind of nice, but like Dexter was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be my kill room. Oh. I mean, you could practice, you could see he got really excited at that. And what's funny about, excuse me, sorry. What's funny about Dexter is that a lot of the times, it's just this narration of his, it's his inner monologue, and then it's him having a back and forth with his father's ghost. But he has all these thoughts, but he never like shows it hardly, but you could see it in his face here. He was like, oh yeah, like it was the perfect kill room, and it looked like a horror movie setting. And so that was great. It was just like this great little scene where it's like, yeah, like, even though I'm a serial killer, I gotta find a place to live, and this will just so happen to be perfect. And so, yeah, I like that. And so, one thing I wanted to ask and kind of talk about was how he has this back and forth with his father, because this is sort of like a big component of the show so far, to have like this constant, almost like a buddy show between him and his father. And so I wanted to ask people who've seen the original show, like, was that always like that, or did it increase? Did it decrease? Like, what's up with that whole situation? Because I like it. I like both characters, and I think that it's interesting. And I guess that his father was a killer too. So that's another thing that's interesting, because it's like you know, Dexter's son is now a killer too. So it's like a continuing like theme in the show is like fatherhood. And so I just wanted to ask that. I'm just curious. So basically, he plans on, like, he's like, okay, I can multitask. I can help out Harrison with his date rape kill problem, and I can also kill this piece of crap who apparently he stole one of Dexter's alter egos. And so he sets up a plan where he's now an Uber driver himself, and then he finds the killer in about a couple of seconds, and he follows him, but unfortunately he loses him, and so that's kind of how the episode ends. And I would say that, again, the show has a really good pace. Like, I know that this season is only 10 episodes, so, it's already almost like a third of the way over, but like it has a really nice pace. And I like that they didn't just rush it to where, he kills, that guy this episode, and like they didn't rush, they just kind of let. And I liked how he had setbacks. I like how he hasn't fully healed from his chest injury yet, and so he ran into someone in the subway, and that's how that the killer got away. And so I really liked that. I thought that was cool, because this is also a guy who, it feels like, and this is just my prediction, it feels like in the old show he was probably very, very um, strong, and just he would never have a situation like this where he would be that vulnerable, where he would just, like, oh, I bumped into someone, so now I can't catch up to that guy. Ugh. You know what I mean? And there's also a little element that his father points out, and that apparently Dexter has never really, like, saved anyone else before, or he's never really cared about anyone else. And so he does save an Uber driver from the killer. And I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting, because that's, I don't know about that, guys. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily true, because I haven't seen, and I've already said this, you already know it, but I have seen a clip from the show where there was like a pedophile approaching like his daughter, or like a daughter of a girlfriend or something, in a store, and Dexter like got her away from the pedophile, and then later on the beach, he saw the guy taking pictures of his daughter, and he approached him there. And so this guy does, Dexter actually does care about people just from that clip alone. So I'm wondering, like, what is the big deal with him, like, saving like this random guy? Like, did he never do anything like that in the original show? Because they talked about how in the first episode how his girlfriend got killed by John Lithgow, and so, or his wife or whatever. So did he not like attempt to save her? So I didn't understand that, but regardless, I guess it's interesting that his character is kind of changing and evolving over time. And so yeah, whatever. I'll see what happens. See, this is the thing about just dropping into a show like this. It's like there's gonna be all these disconnections, and I'm probably gonna get a comment or two that just says you're full of shit. And so let's talk about the Harrison situation, because Harrison, he's going through a bit of a Jesse Pinkman in Breaking Bad season 4 phase, where he's just really not. He's seeing ghosts. He's having nightmares. He's not having a good time. Now there is this female coworker of his, and I forgot her name, but he agrees to babysit her child, her sick little boy. And so, much like with Breaking Bad, I predict that somehow that guy's going to get together with that girl, and then her and or her son are going to be in danger. It just seems kind of like, especially in a Dexter show and a show about serial killers, it seems like anyone that's like a love interest or even like a friend, they're definitely in the target zone for being like a victim of some killer. And I don't think it's Dexter, obviously. But I think that there's going to be some drama there. So, but anyways, he's not dating her yet, but like he definitely is. Okay, like they have a back and forth, they have good chemistry, and honestly, too, I want to take a moment to say, like, I know that I dissed Harrison in the first episode because he does kind of have a whiny look to him, but he kind of reminds me a bit of Spider-Man in the Spider-Man video game, Spider-Man PS4. He kind of looks a bit like that version of the character. So if Tom Holland wasn't playing Spider-Man, then they totally should get this guy, because like I am really sick of Tom Holland's terrible Spider-Man. aka Young Iron Man. So yeah, that's just a little tangent because I have seen all of the Marvel movies. Well, actually, I haven't. That's a lie. I just lied to you, my audience. I have not seen Shang-Chi. I have not seen Ant-Man and the Wasp. I turned it off. And I haven't seen Black Widow or the Eternals. So, there's just some, yeah, there's just some things that I do not care about, you know. But anyways, this detective, who's like the female Dexter, but she's, she doesn't kill people. She's really, really good, and Dexter actually gets to observe her, which I thought was good too, because it's like, again, it's like there's something about like when like an arch nemesis and a hero, like when they get like a feel of each other, like Superman and Lex Luthor, like there's something cool about that where you can feel that these two are gonna have a cat and mouse game, and you can feel that Dexter is like, okay, like I need to be on my A game to get my son out of this one, because this is just the worst possible situation with her, and so he does catch the blood spot that his son left on the ceiling of the kitchen. And there was also a part too. There was a little funny part where he ordered two cheeseburgers and had two whole things of fries. I thought that was funny, uh, and it looked really delicious too. I've had a couple of burgers in the past couple of days, but that looked really, really good. And the fries, they look so crispy, and like they weren't too thin, and they were kind of fat, and they were crispy looking. And just wow, hotels sometimes they can have really, really good food, and I could feel that off of this episode. I could feel this is good food. It's probably not like real hotel food, but it's really good food, okay? Wink, wink. But, anyways, I'm trying to think because there's a lot of different, moving components here, different characters. There was also a little interaction with Uma Thurman where I guess another serial killer is working with her and another guy, and she told him that it was over, and then she ended up having to kill him right out in a parking lot of like some public building. I think it was a bank. And then there was also a little scene where Captain Batista was trying to figure out like where Dexter has gone to, and he's again disguising it as, well, he's my friend, and I'm really concerned about my friend. So he now knows a little bit more about what Dexter was like in this on this reservation that I have no idea about. So I guess I was kind of in the same boat as him in that scene. And then he asks the guy to put up some sort of a notification if his car, the stolen car that Dexter took, ever gets found anywhere. And, what do you know? It was, taken to this impound lot, and Dexter ended up getting a new car. So they probably, there might be some sort of a notification now. Or maybe in an episode or two. I predict that will happen. And so I have made 3 predictions this video. So let's see how many out of 3 actually come true. And then, yeah, Harrison parties, and then he parties with his friend. He's doing a lot of drugs because he feels guilty about what's happening. And then he sells his truck that I guess maybe Dexter gave him this truck, and it had like a sentimental letter in it. But finally, this is what kind of leads into next episode with that storyline is the detective. She looks at surveillance camera footage, and she sees this woman that was almost date raped by that guy that Harrison killed, and she has her brought in for questioning, and then she wants to interview Harrison as well. So that's pretty bad But it is standard procedure, and in these types of situations, and Harrison, I just he is just so screwed because like when he was walking through the lobby, he was watching the woman be taken up for the interview, and you could just see guilty, guilty, guilty all over his face. Like it wasn't subtle at all. Like, he was really slick in the first episode, because he knew how to kill a person and, dispose of them, quote unquote properly. But he made mistakes, and he is just so not slick and not subtle. Even like if the female detective, and forgive me, I don't know her name at this point, if she senses just a little thing about him, like, oh, that guy was kind of off, all that she has to do is talk to his friends, and then that leads her to talking to that guy who he sold the truck to. And the guy will say, oh, yeah, well, he just sold this truck to me. And then she's going to find that letter, and she's going to be like, oh, there's something going on here. And so, unfortunately, I just kind of thought about this as I was talking about it. There is a possibility that Dexter might take the fall for his son. I really hope that's not the case, because it would be really, really cliche and really, really stupid and lame. It would kind of remind me of Better Call Saul, which I don't want to spoil the ending of that show, but the main character makes a sacrifice that is just so, so stupid. And he makes the sacrifice for a character who turned out to be a huge bitch, and she didn't deserve it at all. And, it was just horrible. And so, anyways, I would give this episode actually like an A minus. I'm really starting to enjoy the show, and I can't wait to see what happens next. It's funny because when I first saw the trailer for this season, it didn't really look that good to me. The trailer, I think it probably appealed to fans of the old show more. But then when I started thinking about it, and then I saw a couple of people liked it, that's when I was excited to check it out. So I'm really glad once again that I decided to check out the show. And yeah, I can't wait for this week, because I will be reviewing episodes the day after they air. So, please like this video and comment. What did you think of the first 2 episodes of Dexter Resurrection? And am I full of shit? Yes or no? And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest reviews of Dexter Resurrection. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.